All right, and welcome back to the Spartan Sports Podcast. We're back this week. We're going to do a couple of different topics. We're mainly going to start out with the All-Star reserves. NBA All-Star reserves came out, and a couple of us have a couple bones to pick with, who got in as a reserve and who didn't make the cut. So we're going to hop right into that today. I'm with Thomas and Carter. One of you guys can start it off whenever you want.
Yeah, I don't know how Zion was a reserve when he's not even the best player on the Pelicans. That is Brandon Ingram through and through. So I think that with the people that I had as snubs, I would take Zion out from the West and put in Mike Conley. And I know I talked about him last week a lot, but Mike Conley is a advanced metrics wizard right now. The man has over double the league average of win shares per 48 minutes, and his efficiency rating is just fantastic. He's shooting 42% from three, also, which is pretty wild considering that in his career he hasn't really been particularly great at that. And he is also playing on the best team in the NBA right now, record wise at least. So usually the best team ends up getting three All Stars. The Jazz right now only have two. I feel like Conley should be getting the bump there and just be put into the All Star game.
I agree with you there on the Mike Conley point. The Utah Jazz, especially with that statement win over LA last night, they look like they are for real title contenders. Because over the past few years, every time, they have a really good record or go on a 20-game win streak, it's like, oh, are they for real? And they never are. But this year, Conley's stepping up. Mitchell's playing better than ever. Gobert might be on his way to a third defensive player of the year. I think you have to reward that Utah Jazz team, who I think have won like 20 something out of the last 25 games or something like that. Absolutely crazy run for the Jazz. I think they deserve to have three All-Stars.
I think you could definitely make the argument for that as well. I mean, just going off advanced metrics, I know they're not really pretty numbers, and a lot of people don't really like to look at the advanced metrics, but they're called advanced metrics for a reason. And if they're pointing out something that's pretty blatant, then it should be shined upon, at least, unless the NBA doesn't want to take a look at it from that point of view. But
yeah, another one I had. I'm gonna switch over to the East now. I think that Bam Adebayo was snubbed here. He's clearly the best player on the Heat right now. He's averaging 20, almost 10 rebounds. He's also doing really well in advanced metrics. I'm not gonna dive into that again because I know people don't really like listening to that. But per 36 minutes, he's averaging a double-double. He's damn near a double-double regular minutes. And he's the best player on the Heat. He's playing well. And just I don't see why you don't have Bam there when he's like playing as dominant as he is. Like he also has 5.5 assists per game as a center. That's pretty dang good. He's making plays for them. He's the sole bright spot on the team because even Jimmy Butler's struggling right now. So like Bam Adebayo is the Miami Heat right now. And gosh, who did I want to take off in place for him? Oh, Ben Simmons. I don't think Ben Simmons should be an all-star this year. Ben Simmons is not having the best season. I don't know. I don't know why he was nominated as a reserve, but I'd put Bam in place of him.
So yeah, Ben Simmons, people have been saying he's top 5 defender this year, making the case for it. I'm not going to disagree with those people, but the lack of spacing he brings on offense has really brought him down on the offensive side this year. Or not really brought him down, but just kept him from reaching that next level. And I think that's keeping him from being an all-star, especially with the stiff competition this year. Moving on to some of my picks and who I'd replace. In the East, I would give the nod to Domantas Sabonis over Bam Adebayo or Vucevic, who is currently in there right now. Vucevic, I've always had respect for him as a player. He's a longtime veteran, always puts up good numbers for the Magic. I just think Sabonis has been a little better this year. You compare Sabonis and Bam Adebayo, they're both playing on not so good teams right now. Pacers Still not terrible. They started off hot, but they've cooled off a little bit. Both great passing centers, averaging over 5 assists a game. Difference here, Sabonis is averaging about 2 more rebounds a game and a few more points. And the entire Indiana Pacers offense totally revolves around him. I think he deserves to be an all-star. Bam was definitely the next guy up for me in the East. I think his defense is incredible. Definitely one of the tops in the league. I just don't think he edged out Sabonis this year, especially given how bad the Heat are. And then my other spot in the East that I'd replace someone with, I think I need to see Chris Middleton in this All-Star game. The guy is shooting 40, 50, 90. I think he's 0.5 away from the 90 right now, but he was averaging that up until about a week ago. Bucks not doing so hot as they normally do, but Chris Middleton is one of those guys like a Draymond Green that most of what he adds to his team does not show up on the box score. So I have Middleton in for Ben Simmons in this case and Sabonis in for Vucevic in the East. Do you guys have any thoughts on?
I definitely can see like why you chose Middleton. I just think that he lives in such a big shadow of Giannis over in Milwaukee, and like he's just not like that guy that does that the stuff where you want to like it just like everybody goes crazy, like Giannis is that guy. Like he's the one doing the crazy dunks and doing all this and getting boards and going to the rack, and Middleton's more of just a shooter who can distribute and do everything that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. So I think he kind of lives in a shadow over in Milwaukee where people are like, oh, like Chris Middleton has 20 points. He averages 20 points per game. Really? Like, people are like probably would be surprised that you told him that, but I don't know. I agree with that too. Like for sure.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Sabonis, he's has career highs in 3-point attempts this year, and he's shooting a respectable 35% on that. And yeah, he's certainly most of the Pacers' offense this season. I definitely think that there's so many players that are just so deserving of an all-star spot, and there's not enough spots to fill. It's really hard to make these decisions, but yeah, I mean, the only reason I was like between Bam and Sabonis with who I thought should be getting in, and Bam's defense is really what had me put him over Sabonis, but I definitely respect someone that would say Sabonis over Bam as well.
Yeah, and something interesting to point out, Bam, Sabonis, and Middleton, they all made the All-Star team last year, but they're arguably playing even better this year, and they didn't make it. Like, it seems like most years there's like 2 to 3 hard snubs. It feels like there's 7 or 8 this year that you go, they should have made it. Like, there's just not enough spots.
Yeah, me and Thomas were talking like right before we started this, and we were saying like I was saying that I think the NBA is so top heavy right now. Like there's so many good players in the league. It's like you're not going to have an all-star game without having 5, 6, 7, 8 snubs because there's just so many people. Like there's at least how many people make it on the all-star team? Like 10 per.
There's 7 reserves, I believe.
Okay, so 12.
There's 12.
You could say there's probably like 30 to 35 people players that average like at least 18 to 20 per game that could be all-star caliber.
Yeah, fun fact on that. I read the other week there's I think 40 players averaging over 20 this year.
That's insane.
Which I think the all-time high before this year was 34. So
it's ridiculous. Like you can't have that top heavy of a league and not expect to have that many snubs. There is I have a bone to pick because I think that Ben Simmons, I just don't like you said, Carter, he is so like his offensive game has not evolved enough to like really push him past what he's been. And like, I don't know. I just think he's been in like a limbo and I don't really think he's been that great of a player. If I had to add anybody, it would on the East, maybe it's just because it's a hometown, but I would want Jeremy Grant on there just because he's a really big bright spot in the Pistons organization at the moment. They do have bright spots for the future, but he's been balling. He's got I don't know. I saw a stat. It's like he's got the most 20 plus points, 10 plus rebounds, something. I don't know. Just crazy stat in the league by like 6 to 8 games. Like and the second highest was KD. He's just been balling, and I think that he deserves it over, Ben Simmons. But I don't know. You guys did bring up Sabonis and Bam, and those are obviously good picks too. And I also think that it's weird that the Celtics got 2 All-Stars and their team has not been like running that well at all. And it might not be Tatum and Jaylen Brown's fault, but like you can't give a team that's kind of, barely making it through the year or having a offer year than what's expected and give them 2 All-Stars. And then also in the West, I would like to see Devin Booker. I think he's really disrespected. But then again, I look at the guards that made it in the West, and it's so tough because Damian Lillard's having a great year, Chris Paul is having a great year, and Donovan Mitchell's having a great year. So I don't really know if I could give it to him over any of those other guys. I just think he's a snub, but what can you do? So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts, but
yeah, I mean, we found out the other day that Booker was the next guy up when it came to the reserves because he's replacing AD. So we'll get to see him falling out in the All-Star game. But yeah, my other pick in the West, we already talked about him, but Mike Conley. I know an All-Star appearance is supposed to, symbolize what you've accomplished this season and, how your team's doing. But man, Mike Conley has been around for so long. He's a cornerstone in this league. Like, I don't know, he's so well respected. And his effort on the defensive end, I think, really sets him apart from most guards in this league. And especially with the Jazz being the number 1 seed right now, it's tough to leave him off the list.
Yeah. Another guy I don't know if I would put him in there, but someone that I think is very close to being like, he made a very strong case is Trae Young. 27 points and 9.5 assists this year. That's crazy stats. That's something that just seems like it would be a given that you'd be an all-star.
Right. You read off those two and it's like, yeah, all-star, right? Nope.
Yeah. And he's also shooting 37% from 3, which is efficient for him, especially.
Of shots he takes. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's also getting to the free throw line 10 times a game. Like, this is someone who's having a really great season, and he's not even a reserve. He was playing like those are starter numbers when you really think about it. But that's crazy to me that he's not on there.
It's crazy how the league's evolved, in my opinion, and how all these players there's all these young players that are coming in, and then there's people like LeBron and KD and all these other guys that have been around for a minute, and then there's the guys that have been in the league for like 3 to 4 years, and then they're finally starting to get it together. So it's like everything's coming together all at once, like we were talking about like just a minute ago, how everything's kind of top heavy, but I don't know, it's crazy. I don't know. It's so hard to pick.
I'm sitting here thinking about how like Gordon Hayward made the All-Star team like 4 or 5 years ago, averaging like 17 a game. Like what? And now you have Trae averaging 27, not even a reserve. I mean, we didn't even mention guys that are having great seasons like Christian Wood, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Both those guys, De'Aaron Fox, they have all had maybe all-star caliber seasons 5 years ago, but now they weren't even a top 5 snub.
Yeah, it is definitely crazy to say the least. Well, all right. I think we got everything out. I think we're going to move on now. We just heard recently Russell Wilson is not pushing for a trade. He did, however, say that if Seattle were to trade him, he would like to go to 4 select teams, and that is the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Bears, and the Saints. And Carter, your face says it all. You're a big Chicago Bears guy, being from Chicago. Let us know how you feel about that.
I mean, I think every Bears fan has been saying for years how I mean, even before Jay Cutler and through Jay Cutler, we haven't had a solid quarterback maybe ever in our franchise history. Even when we won the Super Bowl in '85, Jim McMahon, who was all right. But yeah, years of Jay Cutler, Mitch Trubisky, Mike Glennon, Nick Foles. I mean, the list goes on and on. We desperately need a quarterback. I think all of us have been hoping for a Deshaun Watson trade all off season. But now that this Russell Wilson news is coming out, like I'm getting ahead of myself dreaming about it. But if we were to get Russell Wilson, keep most of our defense intact, and sign a few offensive weapons, we are instantly a NFC title game contender, maybe going to the Super Bowl. So I am extremely excited, especially because Russell Wilson turns any team into a contender.
Yeah, any of those, if he gets traded to any of those teams, they're going to make the playoffs probably. I think best scenario for him would be to go to the Saints. They, at this moment, probably have the most complete roster. They're in a very strange cap situation. They've been fiddling with their salary cap for like 5 years now, keeping themselves barely under. But they just have the most complete team out of any of the ones on that list. I don't think that with the Raiders he's going to get very far. The Raiders secondary is absolutely terrible. John Gruden and Mike Mayock make some of the most bizarre draft decisions. So I don't know why you'd want to, because obviously he wants to go and compete. So I don't know why you'd be going to the Raiders where, at this rate, it's going to take them John Gruden's entire contract to like put together a squad of like third round grade talent that can make the playoffs again.
It's the culture, man. It's the culture.
It's all the Gruden grinders that he selects in the first round. But yeah, I mean, the Raiders probably not the move for Russell Wilson. Cowboys, if they can get their secondary together, that's honestly not a bad team to go to.
I could see him winning a Super Bowl in Dallas now that you're talking about it.
If they can get their secondary figured out, that's a really well-rounded team, especially with Russell Wilson at quarterback. And Seattle could probably get Dak Prescott back for him.
It's super weird because like the 4 teams that he listed off, 2 have like solid defenses, like pretty top tier defenses in the league, and the other 2 have no defense whatsoever. The Cowboys this past year had a horrible defense, like just terrible. And say what you want and everything, but the Raiders had a terrible defense too. I remember watching the I think it was either a Monday night game or it was a late night game. It was the Raiders and the Chiefs, and they just left the dude wide open in the end zone. Like at the end of the game, I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, come on. But it's just weird how he chose those 2 teams. But hearing the Bears scared me because, being a Lions fan, I don't need another top, at least, or top 10, at least, maybe even top 5 quarterback in the league playing against the Lions because they're already terrible as it is. So that scares me. Plus, the Chicago's defense is good. I'm sure if Russ goes there, then someone like Allen Robinson's probably going to want to come back. Your running back situation is decent in Chicago too. I don't know. You guys sign another good receiver or 2. You guys are pretty set in stone if you guys have Russell Wilson on your squad. So, I mean, whether those teams have an offensive line or not, we saw it in Seattle the past however many years where Russell Wilson had literally 0 offensive line and he was still torching teams. So
I'm sure Russell Wilson is not going to be particularly happy with whatever team trades for him if they do not provide him with protection.
Well, that's true. He'd probably be pissed off still, but I don't know.
Yeah, Russell Wilson knows how to win. Wherever he ends up, they'll be a good team, I think, regardless.
It'll be interesting for sure. Do you guys have anything else you want to add on that?
I mean, just knowing the Bears and that we have Ryan Pace as our GM, we have no chance of this. No chance. Like he says he's interested, but Ryan Pace is like, oh, we got Mitch. We don't need Russell Wilson.
Oh, I listened to part of my take, and I think it's so funny when Big Cat just goes off about Ryan Pace and how he's the stupidest GM ever. It's so funny. Yeah. But anyways, off of that topic, on to Mel Kiper just released his mock draft. We only can see the top 10, but we're only going to talk top 10 right now. Anyways, Thomas, you have the list if you want to list it off for us.
Yeah, we're not paying for ESPN Plus, so so he had number 1 to the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence. He had the Jets trading their second pick to the Falcons, and the Falcons took Zach Wilson, quarterback, BYU. Number 3, the Dolphins took Devontae Smith. Number 4, the Jets ended up with the 4th pick from the Falcons. They take Kyle Pitts, the tight end. At 5, the Bengals take Penei Sewell, the offensive tackle. At 6, the Eagles take out of LSU Jamar Chase. 7, they had the Lions trading their 7th pick to the 49ers, and the 49ers take Justin Fields. At 8, he had the Panthers taking Mac Jones. 9, the Patriots traded with the Broncos, and take Trey Lance. And at 10, the Cowboys take cornerback Patrick Surtain.
Interesting. Thomas, do you have any thoughts on that right off the rip? And then we'll go to Carter.
What is Mel Kiper on?
Thank you.
Why
Because I'm
is-
thinking the same thing. I'm thinking the same thing.
Why, okay, this is nothing against Mac Jones, but he's not a top 10 quarterback in this draft. And why would the Panthers draft someone who, let's be honest, probably is not going to be that much better than Teddy Bridgewater is right now? I mean, just from what I've seen, Alabama quarterbacks don't tend to do the best in the NFL. And as good as Mac Jones has been in college, you also have to consider his wide receivers are pretty wide open the entire time. So he's probably, you got to see him with, those like NFL style coverages. So we'll see how he ends up playing. But when I watch him, I don't see much better than what they already have at quarterback. So that's probably my biggest issue with this draft, besides the Jets taking Kyle Pitts at 4. I don't like it when teams take tight ends in the first round. Never makes sense to me.
Okay, something off of that really quick though. Kyle Pitts is a different type of tight end. In my opinion, he has the ceiling of a Travis Kelce-esque type player because he's that good. He's like a receiver out there at tight end. That's how I feel. 4, and like the Jets taking him at 4, I don't think that's the right team, and I don't think you should go as early, but I think he is a different type of player.
The Jets have so many other issues on their roster that
and that's why I'm saying it's a bad team for him to go to.
They need an offensive lineman, frankly.
Right.
Like Penei Sewell's right there. Why would you not take him? You could have 2 of the best offensive lineman prospects 2 years in a row.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. Carter, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I will never forget coming upon Trevor Lawrence's high school highlight reel when he was like a senior still, and I was like, oh, this guy's going to Clemson, holy crap. And
right.
Since it's happened, he's just kept getting better, it seems. So I don't disagree with the number 1, but Justin Fields, man, there's something about him when I watch him play. I think there's a chance he has a higher ceiling than Trevor Lawrence. If you're looking for a QB at 2, I don't know how you can't pick him. To me, Trevor and Justin Fields are the 2 best quarterbacks in this draft. And if Mel Kiper has the Falcons taken a QB at 2 and they pick Zach Wilson over Justin Fields, they're going to come to regret it. And then Devontae Smith, I think he might be the most talented player in this class. So depending on team needs, I think him going top 5 is definitely deserved. And I completely agree with Tyler about Kyle Pitts. Just different breed, incredibly high ceiling. Again, the Jets, probably not the right fit for him, but if he can find himself a connection with a great quarterback, there's going to be some trouble for the league. I'm telling you.
Yeah, for sure. A couple things I'm thinking right off the rip is I don't think the Jets should do that trade. I don't think they should get rid of the second pick unless they're not trying to draft a quarterback, because I don't know. I also have questions about Zach Wilson because he wasn't a captain last year in college. He wasn't a captain for his own team, which is weird if you're a quarterback and you're not a captain in college.
Like Connor Cook.
Well, let's not get into Connor Cook because he's not.
Well, we saw how that panned out.
He's not a great person. Devontae Smith, easily probably the best talent in this draft. Jamar Chase, I'm okay with. I think he's a good wide receiver, and that's exactly what the Eagles need. It's probably a toss-up between him and Jalen Waddle as to who's the second best receiver in here. So I think you can either choose Jamar or Jalen Waddle and be fine with that. What Thomas said about Mac Jones, I don't really rock with Mac Jones. And Thomas is right, because Alabama quarterbacks are so used to having wide open receivers and having the best receivers in all of college. So it's like you're going to throw them on a team with the Panthers they do have 2 good targets, but then again, it is the NFL, and I've heard quarterbacks like Justin Herbert say, being open in college and being open in the NFL is completely different. So if you throw Mac Jones in there and try and, I don't know, I just think that he shouldn't go at 8. And I think that he shouldn't go to Carolina if he goes to any team at all in the first round, because they already got Teddy B, and whether there's turmoil there or not, they might as well just work with what they have for now. As for the other picks, I don't really have a bone to pick with any of them. The Bengals need another offensive lineman. They need protection for Joe Burrow, obviously. And then Cowboys need secondary, like we were talking about just a minute ago, and Kiper has him taking the corner. So that's fine. That's fine with me. I don't like how he said that the Lions would trade their pick, but I was also thinking with what the Lions need, they could probably trade away 7 and get like a 11 to 15 pick and be fine and get whatever they're looking for anyway. So that's what I have to add. I don't know if you guys have anything more to add or say.
Yeah, I didn't say anything about Mac Jones, but I'm with you guys. Loaded talent around him. I just don't think he's another AJ McCarron. It seems like all Alabama quarterbacks are, besides like Tua and Jalen a couple years ago.
Yeah, true.
Back to the AJ McCarrons.
Thomas, you had something to say?
I mean, with a lot of what this is looking like, it's the question of, do you draft for need or best available? Because the Dolphins need offensive linemen more than they need a wide receiver, to be honest. I don't know why you wouldn't take Penei Sewell, but if they're taking best available, obviously Devontae Smith is the best available on the board.
The Dolphins, they drafted Devontae Parker a few years ago. He hasn't totally turned out to what people thought he was going to be, but I still think he has some time left. But Devontae is the best.
Last year, he had a very serviceable year.
This year he's definitely improved, and I think he's going to keep improving. But at 3, I think you have to take the best player available, especially if it's that kind of an offensive weapon.
I suppose, but you can. I just feel like replacement ability of wide receivers, even if they're not as talented as Devontae Smith is a lot. It's a lot easier to replace a wide receiver than it is to replace a very, very, very good offensive lineman.
But a Heisman winning wide receiver.
Hey, they don't hand Heismans to offensive linemen, so it's kind of hard for offensive linemen to make that argument.
It's so tough. That's what I feel like there's a burden with having, some of the top picks, because there's teams like Miami where, there's a lot of good players available at the, overall wise, like being the best talents in the draft class. And then, you still have pieces to fill though, like at the offensive lineman spot. So you're like, do I fill this or do I take what's, at the top of the boards right now? Like, it's just so tough. That's why I think it's a burden for some teams to have a top pick. But we'll see. Draft is coming up soon. We'll see how this all pans out, what happens. As for now, though, we just can, try and guess and, have our own little thoughts about it. But, all right, getting away from that, I think we've all said what we need to say. March is coming up soon.
Yes, it is.
It's almost March Madness time, and I don't think we have really anything to say right now, other than I'm going to add that I hope Michigan State makes a tourney, because I'll be very sad if they don't. But even if they don't, I cannot wait for March Madness. It's something that I look forward to every single year. And last year, I took a hit. I'll be honest. I took a hit when they were like, yeah, we're not doing March Madness. I was like, ouch, because it's something that's so, I think, energetic, and, you get so into it, and you got to make a bracket, and you got, you're trying to make a perfect bracket with the, one in a, however the odds are insane to make a perfect bracket, but it's so fun. I'm excited. I think you guys are excited as well. I don't know if you want to add anything about the tournament, but I can't wait personally.
Yeah. I don't pay that much attention to college basketball during the regular season. So every time March comes around, it's always very exciting for me to see all of these teams coming together to duke it out. I'll be very surprised when teams that I just historically I know have done well end up not being good because of they just weren't very good this season. So I'm very excited to see these teams play, and I'll be very surprised by no matter what team wins, because I don't know how good people are right now.
Yeah, I mean, we are a Michigan State podcast. I have to just touch on this basketball team very briefly. I did see one article had them as one of the first 4 out teams today for the tournament, which got me excited. And another thing to note, the NCAA announced today that there's going to be 4 replacement teams selected, so that if any schools opt out of the tournament for COVID reasons, or they get a bunch of, positive tests, those teams can take their spots. So that definitely helps Michigan State if they are a fringe team there at the end. And having this tough schedule at the end of the year, as much, as tough as it is, Michigan State now has a chance to really bump up that resume. They just took down Illinois in a huge game on Tuesday. They've got OSU tonight, Michigan twice next week, and I believe Indiana. So if they can win 2-3 out of these next 4 games, we might be talking Spartans with a chance at cracking the 64 team field.
And I'm just going to go off that really quick. It is a really tough, we have a super, super tough schedule coming up, but we are finally starting to play as a team, and our chemistry and cohesion is it's so there now. It's like you watch us at the beginning of the year and we started off 5-0 and we were balling, and then, our team just fell apart. We finally started playing some competition, and it was like, a slap in the face, just, back and forth and back and forth. And then we finally get this cohesion, and we finally have a lineup set. And there's a lot of bright spots. We do play a lot of good teams. We'll see how it turns out. We do have to win like at least 3 of these games, I think, though, to even have a chance, and then do good in the Big Ten tourney, obviously. But it's going to be weird because, as Thomas was saying, like, he hasn't really been paying attention, but there's a lot of good teams that you would be like, oh, like, it's going to be fun to watch Duke or Kentucky or UNC in the tourney this year. And you don't even know if they're going to make it in, because they're also fringe teams. And it's like these blue bloods are, I don't know, this year is just a weird year, but no matter how the tournament ends up and who makes the tournament, I'm still going to be happy to have March Madness and just be able to take that in, again. So I can't wait.
For sure.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's podcast. I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to talk about.
Oh, be sure that you tune in a couple weeks and or sometime in early April, because we are going to have a mock draft special before the NFL draft.
Also, when the bracket drops, we might do a little bracket special too. That might be something we have to talk about, because that'd be super interesting, I think, if we had our own little picks and everything and just kind of go over it for an episode.
Yeah,
but
I'm
yes,
excited.
Yes. All right. Hey, YouTube, like and subscribe. All right. We're going to be back here next week.
Comment down below.
Yeah. Comment. Let us know. Let us know
how much you hate us.
We're still thinking of names. So let us know. All right. Thank you for joining us. All right, guys, we're signing off.
Bye, everybody.